And welcome back, everyone, to episode 68 of the Sports Coverage Podcast. My name is Andrew. Vince unfortunately cannot join us today, but I'm alongside Connor Long. He is, like me, a young aspiring sportscaster, specifically in the world of the Jets, as well as he writes about the Knicks and a lot of other New York teams. So, Connor, if you kind of want to introduce yourself and say whatever I missed about what you do, and then we'll get right into it.
Andrew, appreciate you having me. Super happy to be here, filling Vince's shoes. Hopefully, Vince will be back next episode. But super happy to be with you, Andrew. I know we've gone back and forth over messages, over text. So super happy to, officially kind of meet in a virtual way. We'll obviously meet in person over the summer. But yeah, I'm Connor Long. I cover the Jets on my own channel, NY Flight Jets Talk. Write about the Jets multiple times a day for JetsXFactor.com. Cover the Knicks, KnicksXFactor.com. So yeah, doing a lot of things around New York sports. And hey. My Mets are playing well, so everyone but our Nets. Every team I root for, Andrew, except
Yeah,
our
there you
Nets.
go.
I don't even put the Jets in that equation because the Jets will get no matter what. But happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. We definitely we disagree on some things. Mets, Yankees. We'll see what happens this season. Subway Series is about a month out, so that's definitely going to be fun to watch. But we are here today to talk about the NFL draft. Of course, this upcoming Thursday, there are big picks on the table for both the Giants and Jets, who we both follow and cover here and there. So we should get right into it, and we're going to go through our top 10. Last year, Vince and I did a full 32 first round picks, but that took, I think we ended up filming for an hour and 45 minutes. So we're just going to keep it to the top 10 here, and let's see what we got. So first, round one, pick one, and is to the Tennessee Titans. So Connor, go ahead and let's hear your pick.
I think, Andrew, this is the consensus here, and I think that's Cam Ward, the quarterback from Miami. This isn't the pick I would make if I was Mike Borgonzi in his first year. It makes sense for them overall because they need kind of the face of that franchise. There's no one in that organization that really jumps off the page. Even second year head coach Brian Callahan. At least with my Jets, we have Aaron Glenn and his crazy introductory press conference, so that can replace all the posters. Titans are a team that is still looking for that big name. They have a new stadium coming to Nashville in a few years. I think Cam Ward's going to be that guy. Though I think the Will Levis experiment is just flat out done in Tennessee. They need a new quarterback. I think they view Cam Ward as their franchise guy. I think he's going to be the pick at number one overall. I think the smart pick from an overall value perspective for me would be Travis Hunter, wide receiver and quarterback out of Colorado. I just think this team needs help on both defense and offense. You might as well get someone who maybe might be a full-time cornerback for you and then come in offense or some packages or vice versa. But I think this is pretty easy for all of us. Cam Ward going to the Titans at number one overall.
No, yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said. Cam Ward, I have going number one overall as well. And I just think that, like you said, the Titans, they failed their experiment with their first quarterback that they drafted. And now they're just looking to rebuild. They have some veteran-ish pieces that are there to help kind of lead this offense. But besides that, they should start anew. And I think Cam Ward is going to be the best way for them to do that. Next up, the Cleveland Browns. Of course, they've had their struggles with quarterbacks over the past couple of years. As you know, I don't even know what the count is exactly at now. Since I think 2015 is when they kind of lost their real starting quarterback. But what do you think for the Cleveland Browns?
I think what's going to happen here, Andrew, is I think they're going to go with Travis Hunter from Colorado. We've heard these talks kind of been floating around for a little while now where Andrew Berry wants to put Travis Hunter. I mean, we heard the crazy quote that Travis Hunter is going to retire if any team doesn't play him on both sides of the ball, which I think is absolutely crazy. I would love to see Travis Hunter retire because he will not be playing both sides full time at the NFL level. I think he could be more that wide receiver type for Cleveland, right? I don't think they're going to go with quarterback in the top three. I could see that maybe they take Hunter here and maybe Jackson Dart's falling into the early second round. It's really interesting because the Browns and the Giants have the first two picks on night two of the draft. Jackson Dart sneaks past the end of the first round. Don't count out Cleveland going quarterback in round two, though. I think Travis Hunter's going to be the pick, and I think that's the right pick. You get someone who's a dynamic threat both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Worry about quarterback later. I mean, Deshaun Watson, you still have to worry about all the dead money and that crazy nonsense after you officially move on from him. I don't think it's worthwhile to use a top three pick on a quarterback in this year's draft, especially after Cam Ward's already off the board.
Yeah, and that whole story about Travis Hunter kind of reminds me of last year, Caleb Williams saying that he's just going to refuse his draft pick if he goes to a team that he doesn't like, which I think was definitely a funny
Yeah,
storyline.
look
That was
what he did after he went number one overall last season.
yeah, which I think was definitely a funny storyline going around there. And I feel like this pick for me kind of comes down to my Giants bias playing into this a little bit. I think that the Browns are going to go for the quarterback. They'll go for Shadur Sanders, and mostly, I mean, my thought process behind that is they've been looking for a quarterback for a long time. They're starting to lose all of their star pieces. If they don't have a guy that can just start hurling the ball downfield in a more productive manner than they've had in the past couple of years with whatever quarterback they find off the street that's coming into play. I just think that locking down that quarterback position for them is the first step to take to kind of start to rebuild this Cleveland team. And, of course, that leaves Travis Hunter on the board for the next pick, which, again, I'll let you start with, but that's the New York Giants.
Yeah, the Giants are really, really interesting because you look at what they did in free agency, signing two quarterbacks in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, both guys nearing the end of their career. I think these are just kind of two 1 year guys. I don't think it takes them out of the equation from selecting a quarterback, and I think that's exactly what they do. I think Shadur Sanders is a New York Giant. This is not a smart pick for New York in my eyes by any means, but I think what I think is going to happen with Travis Hunter off the board, I think Travis Hunter's the dream pick for the Giants, right? Because Brian Dable, Joe Shane, it doesn't matter what they do in 5 years. They need to win now. They need to compile an 8-9 win season to secure their job. But now with Hunter off the board, I mean, you look at the defensive lineman. If you were to take Abdul Carter with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and then Abdul Carter, it sounds great until you realize they just double team Dexter Lawrence on the inside every time and run the ball 80 times a game, and that's how you get beat. So in theory, building the star-stellar defensive line with Abdul Carter sounds great. Obviously, I couldn't take Hunter here because he went to two. He went to Cleveland with the number 2 overall pick. I think it's going to be Shadur Sanders. Maybe that's the developmental guy. Maybe he doesn't have to come in and start right away. Maybe it's a combination of Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson that maybe helps Brian Dable and Joe Shane get to that 8-9 win mark, perhaps. And then next season, boom, you have your long-term answer right away with Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, and my ideal Giants, plan for the next 2 years would be take Travis Hunter this year so that you kind of have now dual threat on wide receiver if we plan to use him on offense. Of course, him and Malik Neighbors, everyone's talking about how that would just be an absolutely insane duo. On the defensive side of the ball, our secondary is starting to come along. Deonte Banks, when healthy, looked better this season, and same for whoever else that they're going to end up putting out there next year. But I think that drafting Travis Hunter and then leaving Russell Wilson at quarterback to start the season, and then Jameis behind him. Jameis is signed to a 2-year deal, so he'll be here
Get out of it after year one,
the,
though.
the year after as well. So my ideal plan would be take Travis Hunter this year. I guess not necessarily succeed the season and then figure out a way to either trade up or land that pick for Arch Manning to bring that dynasty back in 2 years. And then you have Jameis Winston there to start to guide Manning through his first season in the NFL. So I think that it starts right now with the NFL draft this year, and the Giants are going to need to figure out how they're going to work this plan over the next couple of years to bring them back to being a competitive team in the East.
Yeah, my whole thing though is like, how good is really Jameis Winston? Do you trust him to be a starter in this league? He's going to throw a lot of touchdowns, but he's also going to throw a lot of for you. I think this is a guy who's kind of just on the roster as kind of a leader slash backup this year. And the one thing I will say about Arch Manning is how good is Arch Manning? None of us know the answer to that because we haven't seen him play. The quarterbacks I'm really looking at early next year, the guys that have proven they can have success at the college level, and that is Garrett Nussmeier from LSU and Carson Beck, formerly of Georgia, just transferred to Miami. I think the Giants right now should, if they really, really like Shadur Sanders, you take him, and I think that would be their best pick, even if Travis Hunter's off the board, because, okay, you take Carter, but then you have to trade the guy in Kayvon Thibodeau, who you selected in the first round 2 years ago. So I still think Hunter's off the board. I think Sanders is the best pick here.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all the points you're making, and I just think that the Giants are going to have to play this game very carefully. And I think, again, like I said, it all starts with this pick here, and that's going to decide what type of team we're going to be for the next couple of years. So I'm hoping for a good pick. I'm not going to be mad if they draft another quarterback here. I think that that's going to be an okay pick because we're still trying to figure out who that guy is going to be in a couple years. Of course, we'll then have 4 quarterbacks rostered if that does happen. Everything you said about Abdul Carter as well is definitely true. Our defensive line last year, I mean, looking beyond our record and looking beyond that, if you look at individual stats for our defensive line, it looked pretty decent. And, we have Thibodeau, Brian Burns, those guys on that defensive side of the ball that are stars in this league and have the possibility to be some of the best defensive linemen in football. So I think that we're going to be either we're going to have a very stacked defensive line with maybe some issues, or we're going to have a backup quarterback, or we're going to end up having Travis Hunter, who might be just a great duo with Malik Neighbors, or might be a great guy to have back there in the secondary. So I'm excited either way. I'm going to be happy with what's going to happen. I'm happy that we're in this position where there's so many different good guys we could take. And I'm happy that those couple wins towards the end of the season last year didn't shoot us in the foot, really. So
For sure.
round 1, pick 4. This is going to be the Patriots. What do you think?
Well, I think if Abdul Carter was off the board by now, Will Campbell from LSU would be the pick here, but you can't pass up on Abdul Carter with the number 4 overall pick. I understand you signed Harold Landry in free agency, but boom, that's perfect. Now you got two-headed monsters coming on each end, trying to sack the quarterback in Landry, and now Abdul Carter. I just don't see a world where New England could pass up on Carter at number 4 overall if he's there. So Abdul Carter from Penn State's my pick. Reminds me a ton of Micah Parsons, hailing from Penn State. In my opinion, one of the most explosive pass rusher we've seen come out of a draft class in a super, super long time. Abdul Carter, I think in this scenario, that's what would happen and what should happen.
I completely agree. I think that this is one of the picks that I think I'm really locking in here and what should happen, of course, barring the Giants taking him a pick earlier. I think that the Patriots over the past couple of years, look, they have the possibility to be good as soon as this year. I know for your division with the Jets and stuff, you might say differently depending on if you want the Jets.
No, I think they're going to have a great year this year.
Yeah, so I think that this is, again, a lot of these teams at the top are going to be taking their first steps towards greatness in a couple years. Of course, that's what they all say, they're rebuilding. And I think that for the Patriots, it all starts right here with Abdul Carter. And I'm definitely excited to see what he does in the league. You're right. He's going to be an explosive guy. He reminds me of Micah Parsons as well. And I think that hailing from Penn State, from an impressive Big Ten program, that's going to mean a lot when he's out up there with the Patriots. So I'm excited for that. And the next pick, I would say, pick number 5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think is a lock for me as well. But I'd like to hear if you have the same thoughts as me.
Yeah, this is interesting because they can go in a few different directions. You can maybe go beef up the interior of the line with a guy like Mason Graham, and then you have Travon Walker on the outside, the guy you took with the number 1 overall pick just a few years ago. Or you can try to, add some pass catchers for Trevor Lawrence. Maybe go a Temp McMillan route from Arizona, get that big-bodied wide receiver to play on the outside for Liam Cohen's new offensive scheme. For me, it's Mason Graham here. I think that's going to be the pick. This is a guy who you can plug in as a three technique type interior guy right in the middle of your line. He's going to be a run stopper for you. He's going to provide value as a pass rusher. I would like him for the Jets. The thing is, the Jets already have a productive 3-tech in Quinnen Williams. I don't want 2 3-techs playing next to each other. Ultimately, I think Mason Graham ends up in Jacksonville, and he's a Jaguar come the number 5 overall pick just a couple days from now.
I agree with you as well. I think that this pick makes a lot of sense for the Jags. Like you said, their defensive line, although not great over the past couple of years, like many parts of their team, I think that's the first. If they get kind of another guy on that defensive line, there's a chance that they're very, very good this year on that side of the ball. I think that, of course, getting a wide receiver in later rounds will definitely need to be something that they focus on because T-Law, he's kind of seems a little lost out there, especially last season where he hasn't really had much success hurling the ball. So hopefully they start making moves later in the draft as well and potentially trade up even in the second round or into the end of the first. But other than that, Mason Graham, defensive lineman out of Michigan, we both have going 5th overall. Next up to the Raiders. this is an interesting one as well. And I don't know if we'll have the same pick here, but we'll see in a second.
But Chitter off the board, easy for me. Ashton Genty, Boise State. This is a generational talent when it comes to the running back position. I think the best running back I have scouted, at least since Saquon Barkley, coming out of 2018. This is a guy who was 30 yards shy of breaking Barry Sanders' FBS single rushing yard. I mean, over 140 missed tackles forced, nearly 2,000 yards after contact, 7 yards per carry is what he was averaging. This is as close as it comes to a generational running back. That small, beefy, compact, 5'9", 215-pound build. He could beat you with his strength. He could beat you with his agility. I think Ashton Genty is a special, special player, and he lands in Las Vegas with the number 6 overall pick.
Yeah, so I take that back. We actually do have the same pick there. And I think it's interesting that just a couple months ago, everyone was saying, oh, he's going to the Cowboys at pick 15 or pick 14, wherever they ended up. And Ashton Genty has rose in the rankings in the past couple months, especially as college football playoff season came around. And I am very happy to see that he is most likely at this point going to end up in the top 10 or even with the Raiders at pick 6. The Raiders were last in rushing yards last season, so I think that this is the most obvious choice for them. Again, all of these teams we've mentioned so far definitely have other places where they are struggling heavily. The Raiders, they don't really have much going on outside of Max Crosby on the defensive side. And, I just think that, like, Raheem Mostert at the top of their depth chart right now, it just makes a lot of sense for Ashton Genty to end up in Las Vegas next season.
100%.
All right, next up is the Jets. So I think this is going to be the one where I'd like to hear a lot from you about what you have to say. So yeah, go ahead.
I'll give my 2 answers. What they should do is they should draft Tyler Warren from Penn State. 6'6", 261 pounds, a guy who's going to come and contribute as a receiving threat, kind of help be that safety net for Justin Fields. The Jets need another threatening pass catcher to complement Garrett Wilson. I think Tyler Warren could be that guy for this team. His technique needs refinement, but he could develop into a productive blocker at the NFL level. I mean, you look at the Jets tight end group right now. Zach Kuntz, Stone Smart, Neil Johnson, Jeremy Ruckert. All 4 of those guys have a combined for a career 650 receiving yards. The Jets need a productive tight end, especially when you look at their new offensive coordinator, Tanner Engstrand, who's coming from Detroit, and he used his tight end, Sam Laporta, on 86% of his offensive snaps. The Jets need a legit tight end one. They should get that with the number 7 overall pick in this year's draft. What I think they will do, I think it's going to be Armand Membou from Missouri. For me, it's nothing against Membou as a player. This is someone, though, who was viewed as an end of the first, early second-round guy before he went to the Combine and impressed. He's a solid right tackle without a doubt, but you just took a tackle in the top 10 last year. You look at the good teams in the NFL. They don't need to use first-round picks on every single offensive lineman. If the Jets draft Membou, 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen would have been first-round picks in the past 3 years. Elijah Vera-Tucker, Olu Fashanu last year, and then now Membou this year. A perfect example is the Eagles. They took someone named Jordan Mailata in the 7th round just a few years ago and developed him into an all-pro left tackle, and I think that has to do with their entire coaching staff. I mean, Jeff Stoutland is the best offensive line coach in all of football. I think good coaching does not need to use a first-round pick on every tackle. I think they're going to take Membou, but what I think they should do, get your pass catcher who's going to contribute right away in the blocking game as well, and Tyler Warren in the first round. And then go into the second round and get a guy like Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon or Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. They can come in and play right tackle. Maybe not as high of a pedigree as Membou, but better overall value, and you don't have to use a first-round pick for the second year in a row on a tackle.
Yeah, I agree with you about Membou, and of course I agree with you about potentially getting Warren to fill that tight end spot. I think having Fashanu and Membou side by side, especially drafting offensive linemen 2 years in a row isn't necessarily a great look, but I think when you see them on field together and you have them side by side, I think that it's going to be a completely different story for the Jets, especially with, as you know, they've struggled with their quarterback injuries. They've struggled with their offensive line. They've struggled with a lot of things if we're being real. But I think that having Membou there protecting their quarterback is definitely going to be helpful. And yeah, I think that getting another offensive weapon might be helpful as well, but I just don't think that that's going to be what the Jets are going to end up doing. And I agree with you basically on all sides of what you said.
For sure, 1000%.
Pick 8. What do we think for Carolina?
Defense. They paid J.C. Horn, so I'm going to take cornerback. I want to say Jalen Walker from Georgia, a guy who's kind of a jack of all trades. You can play him as an outside linebacker coming off the edge. You can play him as an on-ball linebacker. I think he has the better size to project as an edge guy and off-ball linebacker, and I think that's what he will do. But I think the biggest thing for Carolina is bringing some defensive pieces into the building. You might as well get a versatile piece in Jalen Walker at number 8.
Yeah, and Walker is a Carolina native there. He grew up with the team, and of course, Carolina struggling defensively last year and struggling with sacks specifically. I think third lowest for them last season across the league, which is definitely an issue, especially with hopefully Bryce Young starting to throw the ball a little more and the offense getting going over the next couple of seasons. So I think that having another defensive threat, or maybe even their only real defensive threat on the line, is definitely going to be helpful for them. And out of Georgia, of course, they've had a lot of success in that area of play over the past couple seasons. So I think that if I were a Panther scout, I would say this makes a lot of sense for Walker to end up coming to Carolina during this draft. Pick 9 to the Saints.
I would say Jackson Dart. I just think they're going to wait till next year and take Garrett Nussmeier because his dad's currently on the coaching staff. They do need a starting cornerback. I'll go Jahdae Barron from Texas. This is someone who is very, very versatile. Played safety, played outside corner, played nickel corner over his 5 seasons, a 3-year starter at Texas. This is someone who could be an interesting fit for them. Great against the run, great in pass coverage, great coming downhill. Really, really like him. Like his versatility overall. I think he's 14th overall on the consensus big board, but I mean the Saints need it. The Saints need a starting quarterback to come in right away. I think they wait to take their franchise guy next year, and I think Jahdae Barron is the pick here.
I think that you're right that Dart is going to end up going much later in this draft. I don't think he's going to end up going to potentially even the Steelers or early in the 20s. I think his stock definitely fell a lot just with how Ole Miss played towards the end of the season or even the middle of the season. Just some of those losses were unacceptable on a lot of levels.
I disagree. I think his stock has only gone up because there's not many quarterbacks in this year's draft class. So there's some quarterback needy teams, a la the Saints, the Steelers, who we just spoke about, the Giants even. Actually, I think I argue that his stock went up just given the fact that there aren't a lot of good quarterbacks in the first few rounds.
Yeah, no, that makes sense as well. I just think for a lot of these teams, they're going to be thinking that that there's teams like later on down the road, and especially like you mentioned, 3 quarterbacks next year that are going to be towards the top of that draft, that it might be worth it more waiting out, and that's just kind of hurt Dart. He's still going. He's a first rounder. That's no doubt about that. But I think the Steelers make more sense for him. But for the Saints, you mentioned him earlier, McMillan out of Arizona, another wide receiver threat for the Saints. I think could be pretty helpful. You know that the division they're in down there, they have Drake London, next state over, who has definitely shown that he has
Mike Evans.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that getting a guy like McMillan, who I guess is comparable to those two guys potentially down the road, I think is going to be very helpful for them to start to build this team up. And I think their offense especially, I mean, if you look at their offense on paper, I mean, the last 3 or 4 seasons, they should theoretically have been a playoff team in at least some of them. But I think now getting another wide receiver threat out there and along with the stars that they already have on the offensive side of the ball is going to be helpful for them on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I think if you're taking Ted McMillan, that indicates you're looking to shop a guy like Chris Olave. I still think they're going to look for a starting cornerback to beef up that secondary.
Yeah, and Olave struggled a little bit this year, and of course the last couple of years. I mean, they don't have a quarterback, which, as you mentioned, is a problem. So it's definitely going to be interesting what they do. I just think it's funny when teams go out and draft positions that like they need a quarterback, and they're still out there just drafting other positions, which can't function without a quarterback, really. So, and the Giants are big proponents of this over the past couple seasons. We all know like Evan Neal and stuff like that, and whatever happened there. So I think that it will end up being a wide receiver just because they're going to be, like you said, looking to shop some of their stars around towards the middle of the season, and then hopefully next year, as you said, there's three quarterbacks out there again, and we'll definitely see what happens there. But to wrap up, pick number 10 to the Bears. They had a big season last year, or a big draft, I guess, last year with their 2 top 10 picks, and now they're coming back with the 10th overall pick again this year. What are you thinking?
This is tough because if Gentry were to fall, he would have been a great fit for the Bears. And the way we know Ben Johnson likes to utilize his offense. So with Gentry off, Will Campbell, that's going to be my pick. Get your starting left tackle in the building right away. Get your cornerstone option to protect Caleb Williams and his blind side. Gentry would be their best option, but I think you got to start with the trenches. I mean, look at what Detroit did the first year. Obviously, Ben Johnson coming over to Detroit. They drafted Penei Sewell. I think Chicago here, looks to get their cornerstone left tackle in the building with a guy like Will Campbell.
Yeah, and I mean, DeAndre Swift fell just short of 1,000 yards again this season. He wasn't necessarily bad, but I think Gentry would boost that offensive side of the ball, especially with Caleb Williams maybe not looking as great throwing-wise as many would have hoped, although he still did what he needed to do and what he could do at least for the Bears this season. I agree with Will Campbell as well. I think that, I mean, he theoretically is one of the best offensive tackles, or is the best offensive tackle in this draft class. And I think that there's a chance that he doesn't even fall to them at this 10 spot. We talked about a lot of other guys and teams ahead that need players like him. But I think that just an LSU guy, an SEC guy who's done a very, very good job of protecting his quarterbacks over the last couple of seasons is going to be very, very important for the Bears, especially with Caleb Williams as he starts to mature through his first couple of seasons in the NFL. But that wraps up the top 10. But just out of curiosity, if you don't have Tyler Warren going to the Jets, where do you think he'll end up in this draft?
Where did the Colts pick? 12?
They are 14, I believe. I think 12 is Cowboys.
I think go to the Colts. They've been looking for that bookend tight end, that cornerstone guy. I think Tyler Warren's that, providing a receiving threat for whether it's Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. They really need to get receivers in the building alongside Alec Pearson and Michael Pittman, so I think he would go there.
Yeah, and also, do you think Jalen Milroe is going to end up making the first round?
He shouldn't. I think he's a top of the second round type guy. Look out for him to Cleveland at, what are they, 34, 33? One of the first 2 picks alongside the Giants in the second round. Look out for him.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Connor, for talking some NFL draft with me. That is going to be this Thursday. And it's going to be a long one, I think. I remember last year it was rough. I had to wait for the Giants pick until about 11:30 at night because, for some reason and somehow we were good that year. So I don't know. But I think it's going to be a pretty quick night for both of us to figure out if we're going to be happy or sad for the next season. And we'll see what happens. And Connor, if you just kind of want to plug all of your socials real quick before we wrap up.
Well, Andrew, appreciate you having me first off. Well, super fun. So if you ever want to have me back on, just hit me up and we'll definitely make it work. You can find me at YouTube and Life Like Jets talk about the Jets there every single day. Read my work on JetsXFactor.com. Check us out, KnicksXFactor.com. Playoffs are here. Get your go-to Knicks coverage at NickX, and Twitter, Connor_long15. But nevertheless, Andrew, super fun. Appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to the draft. I mean, there's a lot of speculation, but who knows where each team will really go, and we'll find that out this this Thursday, April 24th.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone so much for listening. This has been episode 68 of the Sports Coverage Podcast. You can find all of our clips and announcement posts over on our Instagram. Like and subscribe here on YouTube, and we will see you all next week with Vince and another special guest. Thank you everyone for listening.